guess the piece of the puzzle that we haven't touched on yet, Matty, is Sybil. It was a project we picked up mid last year. It's a low sulfidation epithermal system. This thing looks a ton like Pajingo. We got in there, basically inherited 40 years worth of paper data, annual reports. The team pulled it together pretty quickly, and we drilled 14 diamond holes straight away into Francis Creek, and we had a best number of 4.4 at 57.5.
This is general advice and my opinions only. This episode's company has paid me for this interview. I may be long, short, or hold an interest in stocks or CFDs mentioned. Past performance isn't reliable. The interviewee's views are their own, not necessarily mine. LEVRD operates as a corporate authorised representative 00131 8377 under AFSL 548573. You can find our financial services guide via the LEVRD website, link in the show notes.
Right, bag holders and stop loss owners, in true state of origin week, we're going, it's either a New South Wales or a Queensland company, and I don't know why, but I've interviewed two Queensland companies this week, which goes against me jersey in the background there. Mate, we've got, right, Damien Keys, MD of Sunshine Metals, ticker SHN. Welcome to LEVRD, mate, from Queensland. God.
Cheers, Matty.
Mate, here's overview for the punters. Here's the graph. We're sitting at about 105 mil market cap at the moment, but I guess the interesting thing about Sunshine is the Mt Moss deal. That sort of transformed you. And then when you'll hear Liontown a lot in this episode, but it's got nothing to do with lithium. This is the Liontown Gold Project, as you can see here down south of Charters Towers. But you've done this Mt Moss acquisition, which I guess is pretty much transformed the company in a way. Take us through the deal, mate, what you've got and the sunshine. Tell us where the sunshine's coming from.
Well, there's plenty of sunshine, Matty. And I guess just to touch on Liontown, Liontown Resources actually, I believe, started life with that asset many moons ago. And I guess like so many that come up to the district, they breeze in from out of state. They have a bit of a look. It's not quite the same as they do things in WA, or systems and stuff are a bit different. So they exit as quickly as they came. And I guess for us, looking at this map, we're based out of Townsville. So I'm sitting here in sunny Townsville at the moment, and hour and a half from all our project area. So our life basically we've now revolves around that one little map you've got on the screen. So yeah, look, it's been a wild journey to get to where we are. We've been listed for December 2020. We've seen out some pretty rough market. But we started to move into this Ravenswood district in 21. And then in 23, the piece really came together when we picked up all these southwestern red leases, I guess, out of the administration of Red River Resources. And pretty quickly we realised that Liontown itself had a fantastic polymet resource. So it's a VMS resource. It's got gold, silver, copper, zinc and lead. But there's a golden core to that resource base there. So yeah, we've grown that resource from when we picked it up. Liontown East had about 1.5 million tonnes. Liontown itself was about 2.5. Now the resource base sits at 7.4 million tonnes, and we've really grown that rapidly. So what we realised was that gold-rich portion of it, we've now essentially drilled that out, and that's formed the basis of the mining study. So you've got up here, and no doubt we'll delve into that in a whole lot more detail, but a small portion of the resource gives us a great starting point. That's gold and silver. And then I guess we completed the mining study believing we'd toll treat at one of 3 mills in the district. And I guess the allure of being owner-operator and being in control of our own destiny spoke volumes, and we've ended up picking up the Mt Moss mine site. So Mt Moss was a magnetite mine back in the day, and it gives us the front end of a milling circuit that we can truck our Liontown gold to. We'll put the back end of the gold circuit on it and be producing our own gold through our own Mt Moss mine.
And what it's about, looking at the map here, it's about So 220k haul, is it?
Yep. Yeah, so there's a bit of a run up the road. It's bitumen pretty well door to door, which is certainly a big benefit to us. And yeah, haulage, whilst expensive, it's not quite as prohibitive as it used to be. When gold was 2,000 Aussie an ounce, and now we're looking at 205 to 210 bucks a gram of gold. So when you're hauling door to door for 45 to 50 bucks, it's you're looking at 0.25 grams a ton in haulage. So not as prohibitive as it used to be. Sure, there's some complexity in that, but we're looking forward to getting stuck in.
Yeah, and to be fair, if you're hauling, looking at the dirt you are hauling for this 8% study, like what your resources, 247,000 tonne at 7.3 grams gold, and your latest looks like grade control drilling 22 metres at 20.5. So she's pretty high grade in the trucks, which makes it good bang for buck effectively.
Yeah, mate, I gave a talk in Melbourne late last year, and tongue in cheek, all the other speakers got up and talked about their proximity to Fosterville, and I think I said we're about 2,100k from Fosterville, but that our dirt would probably still truck there at the moment. So
that's a good way to put it.
So,
mate, well, that's it. You got to when you compete against every other bloody company at those conferences, you got to find something to stand out. There's 150 obvious there.
Yeah, no, it was a good giggle anyway.
Mate, first I want to go, as you went through it a bit at the start, the Liontown deposit, and I guess the study itself. And I just probably want to get my head around where all this material is sitting. So you've put this study out to say, right, 8% of our dirt we can treat gold only, and that's what we're gonna send to Mt Moss. But as you said, it's gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc, polymetallic. Where's all this? Where's the gold rich sitting in comparison to all the other polymetallic stuff? Does mining the gold by itself sterilise any of that? What's the overview of the whole thing?
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I guess that's probably a great spot to stop right there, Matt. Is this is a big system, so we've essentially got a contact between some volcanics and sediments. On the contact of the volcanics and sediments, we see a predominant lead, zinc, silver assemblage, and as we move into the volcanics, it turns into more of a gold and then a gold copper system, and as we move into the footwall of the system. So essentially it was all laid flat on or close to an ancient sea floor, and as the fluids came out and cooled down, things like your lead, zinc and silver precipitate out at cooler temperatures, whereas the copper and gold drop out earlier. So it was all layered out, so they're pretty distinct lodes, and there's a zonation both laterally and what would have been vertically. That whole flat system got tilted up on its, my hands are going weird, but tilted right up on its side. So now what we're looking at is lodes that come to surface. So in that pit shape there that you can see on the screen, we've now grade controlled that out to essentially about 10 to 12 metre centres now. So we've got a fair bit of confidence in that resource. We've had numbers from surface, so 9 at 6.3 grams from surface. I think some of the stunning drill results we got out of that open pit grade control stuff, there was 30 at 6.7 gold and 530 grams silver. And then these numbers, the 22 at 20, is from a zone that we identified called the gold panel, because we're a pretty creative bunch, us geos. And that gold, there you go. So, and the gold panel genuinely is a stunning high grade part of the system that has very little sulfide in it. So we see this, and we think it's probably, and I've been canned for geological interp, but we think it's close to where these fluids have entered the system. So if you're a feeder or those sort of ideas of how fluids getting into the system, we think this is where they've entered the system, and we're looking at a part that's essentially a nice gold-rich portion. So we hit, in our first drilling out here, we hit 17 metres at 22 grams a tonne. We followed it up with 20 metres at 18 grams a tonne, coming in about 50 metres beneath that. And now we've drilled this thing across the sort of top of the fresh zone now, and we've intersected the 22 metres at 20 grams a tonne, and then on the eastern end we hit 14 at 12.4. So we're starting to build this picture of confidence in this gold panel. Nothing more nerve-wracking than when you have some booming high-grade hits and hoping that you can replicate those over and over. But our first de-risking the first couple of levels of the underground, and it's certainly gone well and truly to plan so far.
Is that inferred component and the bottom of where that resource is classified? Is there anything indicating that continues, or is it cut off, or still open to further drilling?
And our mining study, so there's potential for extensions to the amount of metal in that. You have to make the cut based on indicated, inferred quantums into a mining study, a scoping study or thereabouts. So it's a small portion to start us off. It gives us, conservatively under the previous mining study, it gave us about 4 years of mill feed, puts through about 75,000, it produces about 75,000 ounces of gold and 650,000 ounces of silver. So the bulk of that silver comes out of the open pit component of that resource. And that's essentially our starting point. So we've got no doubt we can grow this internally, and I guess as you move to, if you move to the east of the gold panel, we intersected some numbers out in a zone called the Gap Zone, so just to the east of the gold panel, and those numbers, we hit those in 2024, and I think we had, from memory, about 16 to 17 metres at about 4.5 to 5 grams gold. So we think we're probably onto the next one of these high-grade shoots, and we can grow the system in a couple of ways organically. So that's pretty exciting stuff too.
Yeah, right. So, and you mentioned sulfides. Is there is it free milling this initial dirt that's going to be heading to Mount Moss? Or?
Yeah, we've cherry picked the bits that are going to go through a conventional CIL circuit. So we've got some pretty fair amount of met work across this already. Yep. We've just submitted another 14 to 15 samples, I believe, from across the pits, and there'll be another bunch of met work, complementing that from the gold panel zone as well. So, look, all our recovery work to date has been pretty solid, and we've got no reason to think that we can't recover the vast majority of this through a conventional CIL circuit. Okay. And that's before we go back and contemplate extraction of the base metal. So you were saying, does it sterilise everything else? Well, it doesn't actually. It gives us a great takeoff point to go and attack the base metal side of things. And we'll be kicking off base metal studies later this year as well, just to try and put a metric on what that remaining whatever it is, it's going to be about 6 and a bit million tonnes, what the remaining quantum is of value that could be recognised if we could take a concentrator on down the track.
Yeah, I'm keen to get into that. And I suppose the first cab off the rank is processing the gold at Mt Moss. And I'm just looking at your restart plan here. So you've got effectively 28.5 million going towards leach and adsorption tanks, the grinding, the gold room, reagent storage, and the general stuff. So that's to convert that plant into a gold CIL plant. So, and then I assume, as you said, are you looking to then potentially go down the route of similar to what a Medallion's doing and having a flotation component as well to then treat base metals in future as well? So you got the option to pump gold bars or produce a concentrate. Yeah,
that's the general plan.
Yeah.
the bigger picture plan, and there's nothing quite like a forward-looking statement. So, assuming the base metal component of Liontown is as good as we believe it is, then we've got no doubt that taking a concentrator on up at Mt Moss, will be a value add up there as well. And I guess from our prelim met work that we've done, further and above the work that Red River had done previously, if you actually put the rougher tails back through the CIL circuit, so in the concentrate, you're looking at probably 65% recovery on your gold and silver. If you put the tails back through a CIL circuit, our prelim network showed us we could start to achieve recoveries in the low 90s by treating the tail from the sulfide. So look, having two circuits of that nature side by side, there's actually going to already, it looks like there's a lot of synergies and upside to putting them both together anyway.
So, and because at the moment it's sort of, you're going for 300,000 tonne per annum for the mill. Like I guess what sort of, how long's that going to last you, do you reckon? Like, there'll have to be, I assume, a step change at some point to really up that throughput number. And what will be involved into what are the big bottlenecks to achieve that?
Yeah, look, there's tons of room on site. So Mt Moss does have plenty of room to put all this infrastructure in. The infrastructure that's up there is in really good condition at the moment. So mills last turned in 2022. Our prelim assessments are that we can have this thing up and running pretty quickly and pretty cheaply. And that's the big focus for us. There is tons of room on site there to tack on a concentrator and to upgrade, add another mill into the circuit itself to upgrade throughput. Look, we don't see it as being a slow startup based on the tonnages we're talking. We've bought ourselves 4 years run rate at that sort of capacity before we really need to decide on stepping it up or building on that.
Yeah, and it sounds like that you can tick away at that underground gold portion to really get yourself in a good position.
Mate, the quicker we can drop that eastern end of the pit and get that portal takeoff position established, the faster we bring that cash flow forward. And I guess we'll put a mining study update out in the next sort of 6 weeks or thereabouts, and that'll incorporate all this recent drilling that we've just completed. And off the back of that, I guess we should, given some of those thicknesses in the open pit component too, 30 at 6.7 gold and those sort of numbers, we should be able to see a bit more cash flow pretty quickly.
Yeah. And so is there a rough timeline on when all this will line up to, get the pit down, get the portal in and start dropping the stope? Is there a rough indication? Yeah.
Look, I'll say yes, and my engineers will bloody shoot me already. But
put the pressure on them, mate. No, everyone works good under pressure.
They're constantly squeezed. But look, at the moment, the talk is definitely on getting the portal takeoff position in and established within about the first sort of 9 to 11 months, I guess. And obviously that's subject to update on the resource and all those sort of things. But that's kind of where we're looking at, is within a year having a portal takeoff position. I think there's about 5 months of development, so to get us properly established in there. So we should be breaking some of that pretty impressive dirt relatively quickly. The open pit dirt's not to be sneezed at either, though. But certainly the quicker we can get into that underground and supplement with some of that beautiful high grade stuff, the better.
Is there what sort of permitting milestones have to be met to start dropping the pit effectively, or is everything lined up pretty well?
Look, we could probably almost rip in tomorrow in terms of taking a sort of smaller footprint pit. And I guess that was our initial thought process behind stage 1, 2, and 3. Stage 1's entirely on the granted mining lease. So there's two red boxes here. One is the granted mining lease, the smaller shape that encompasses the pit.
Yep.
And the outside shape, the mining lease application is we're in the final throes of native title compensation negotiation. All the other boxes have been ticked with respect to grant of that mining lease application. And we've prepared just the usual environmental background document. So a lazy sort of 400 and whatever pages of, dust and runoff and groundwater and all those sort of studies that we do.
I love reading them.
Oh, yeah, well, I read all the bits that I need to read, that's for sure. But yeah, look, that's ready to go. And basically, as soon as we confirm this final pit shape, we'll submit the site-specific EA, and that takes about 6 months to run through. So the reality is, we believe we can be pretty close to fully permitted by about Christmas.
Yeah.
But we could take that smaller footprint pit sooner rather than later. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Now, with I guess the deal, just give us the snapshot of the balance sheet post. I know you've got between the cap raise, the SPP that's going to be coming in, the upfront payment. You got 10 million deferred for Mt Moss as well. How's it? Where's the numbers sitting at the moment? Where's your open up net bank for me?
Oh, mate, it's might need the
Not your one.
My one doesn't look as healthy as no. Look, we finished quarter with 4 mil in the bank, so that was our starting position. We've been doing some prep works for upcoming drilling at Sybil, so not too much of a need into that 4. I guess on top of that, we've just raised 19 through a placement. So, and then we've run an SPP off the back of the placement to give all the retail holders a chance to participate as well. The SPP has been bloody incredibly well supported. So we went out with a target of 3 with the ability to accept overs. We've just announced that we'll take in 7.7. So I can't thank our holders enough for their support and looking to repay it in spades. So yeah, I guess that brings the 19 and 7.7, so 20, just under 27 million bucks come into the company there. And look, I guess we've got 8 mil upfront as part of this Mt Moss acquisition. So we basically get that done. And then the 10 mil deferred consideration. So we're currently pushing through, looking at a debt piece to sit alongside and fast track this mill construction. And we'll be ordering long lead time items. So the gold room is essentially a modular unit. We can put a deposit down on that sooner rather than later. Try and reduce these longer lead time items and stick to our timeframes to have this thing up and spinning in June 2027.
So you might have a if you didn't look to raise equity, of course that's an option. The debt piece could likely cover deferred consideration and potentially some of the mill refurb costs as well.
Yeah, potentially. So look, I think we've got enough sitting there now through the back of the SPP as well that we've certainly got the option to stow away most of that, if not all of it, and finalise the acquisition sooner rather than later. So we'll certainly get through tranche 1, line up our debt pieces, and if the money's there, we'd look to exercise that option on the lot sooner, complete the deal sooner, and basically push forward under our own steam, reduce that back end handbrake essentially.
Yeah. So then that'll be doing that would mean it's all yours. Title transferred. She's all done.
It's all done. So
Yeah.
careful what you wish for, I guess.
Yeah, mate, those engineers will be loving you by then. Mate, and I guess there's some depending on the flavour of the market at the moment, with gold pulling back a bit, but then copper heating up. I'm just like, you look at Mount Moss, like some of the historical.
Yeah.
Copper intersections there, like 19.9 at 4.4, and obviously that's very close to the mill, but that's obviously a longer process to get a concentrator in place to start processing that. But it's, I assume, focusing on commodity focus is probably a big priority at the moment, because it'd be easy to get distracted on what's the popular theme this week.
Oh, mate, if you went across all of this Ravenswood block and we've got everything from bloody, obviously the copper, lead, zinc, gold, silver. We've also got moly. There's plenty. So Mount Moss has actually got a whole bunch of little old tin workings up along the northern edge of the skarn. So a bit of tungsten with those tin deposits as well.
Oh, you may as well drop that into the bucket.
You could really lose the plot. I mean, that's magnetite, limestone. Yeah. Look, focus. I can tell the punters that our focus is well and truly on the gold portions of Liontown, making sure we monetize and really hit that hard. I mean, there is incredible within the shadow of what would be the concentrator. There's incredible potential for both zinc and copper. So you just had up a second ago some of that long section through the bottom of Willet's pit. So it was an old pit for magnetite. There we go. There's an old pit taken for magnetite back in the day, and on the margins of the magnetite ore body, you've got 30 metres at 12% zinc, pretty well under the south wall of the pit. And then you push down at depth where the drill holes become really sparse, and you start looking at 20 metres at 4.4% copper. And I've seen the photos of the core. It's magnificent looking stuff. You move out of the magnetite. So obviously your byproduct's still going to have some economic, capacity to generate some dollars for you through there. And importantly, all that mag separation gear is still on site. So it won't be, we won't be fire sale, or that'll get wrapped in plastic and stored for a rainy day. But you've got these bloody bornite and chalcopyrite intercepts at depth that look pretty stunning, and not all of that was actually assayed for silver, but where it was, there's up to about 1,800 grams silver in a couple of those intervals. So it could be a fantastic mineral system in its own right. And I guess a bit of rainy day geology for when the team's not out at Sybil or not doing anything at Liontown, they can start pulling apart Mount Moss and we'll build it back up and see what we need to do to bring that into resource status as well. So,
because where I've got the map up here where Mount Moss is, like northwest of Townsville. Where is the closest concentrator? Copper concentrator. Who's in the district there? You're obviously pretty far from bloody Cloncurry, Mount Isa area.
So the nearest concentrator in any sort of condition is Mount Carlton. So if you're looking to the southeast of Townsville, just on top of the legend there, Mount Carlton. So that was originally essentially a gold mine. That was a high sulfidation epithermal system. So they produced a concentrate out of there. That was initially Evolution. And more recently, it's just been picked up by Boomi. So the Indos picked that up. Thalanga, so off to the very southwest of our lease holding, Thalanga was the old Red River concentrator. It's now being, so when it went into, when the receivers came in, they were, as I understand, they were issued a couple of environmental breach notices, and so they dropped it quick smart, and it went into the abandoned mines unit. And we've done everything in our power to try and get the Queensland government to, I guess, release Thalanga. We offered dough to try and bring that up and get it going again. It's now been sitting there idle for about 4 years and has gone into a pretty ordinary state of disrepair. And to be fair, the site we've got at Mount Moss, in terms of environmental liability, just general wear and tear on the gear, given it was putting through oxide, dirt, and magnetite, not high sulfide ores. I'm probably breathing a bit of a sigh of relief that we've got Mount Moss rather than Thalanga. And then
It looks
I guess
like you
in terms of
painted
other
it before
active-
you took the photos. It actually looks in pretty fresh nick.
Yeah, no, it's in pretty good condition, mate. So, there's a bit of nothing a bit of sandblasting and a respray won't fix. There's nothing particularly structural with the rust that's there. So look, other than that, you'd have to race out the rail line about 700 k's out to Cloncurry before you came across the next concentrator. So
Yeah.
there's a big opportunity. We've got the bulk of the sulfide systems in this area and this part of the world, all down through that Thalanga down through Liontown, Waterloo. That's the VMS belt in the district.
Yeah, mate. There's another up and coming district in Queensland. I love it. Well, it's not up and coming. It's a bit of a rebirth. It's a rebirth district, isn't it? After I guess what with everything with Red River.
A place that time forgot. So it would have been humming in the 90s at Charters. You had Mount Laish and Kidston, Charters itself, all these deposits that were, Thalanga being found and up and running. Rishton would have been an absolute hive of activity. And then they kind of all started to run low on ore about the same time. And then things like Pajingo and Ravenswood were kind of the only bits left in the area. And it's become a bit of a place that sort of everyone's forgotten or lost interest but a huge opportunity. We look at stuff here, and I've done my time in the Yilgarn, and the exploration intensity and maturity of the exploration over here is, we're stumbling across stuff at surface that, if it was in the Yilgarn would have had thousands of holes in it by now. So yeah, huge opportunity for us.
Yeah, and speaking of opportunity, I'll put my cursor over it. Ravenswood, that is looks they're on walking a tightrope effectively. Sounds like they've got to front up some money, and if they don't, it's going to be in, I guess, receivership in a way due to the legacy hedge book. What's your comment on Ravenswood? Does that present any opportunity to Sunshine at all?
Oh, mate, I'm pretty happy with us raising bloody 25 or whatever we've just raised. I think I might need another couple of zeros. And a zero on the back of that. Yeah, look, probably a bit out of our league at the moment. And you never want to see anything in the district go under. It was a huge investment. And obviously they needed to take a large hedged position at the time. And I guess who would have seen it coming, at the start of the year, what were we looking, almost 8,000 Aussie gold prices and stuff like that. It was, everything went a bit nuts at the time. So, yeah, look, we want to see those guys certainly get up and running again. And, it's a great place. I cut my teeth there 23 years ago as a pit geo. So, yeah, look, it's a good place, and we hope they do well.
What's the you've got old headers on the register. Line selection got in, pretty early. What's their, I guess, involvement there? He's obviously backed you. He'd be good for a weekly phone call, I assume.
Well, funny you should say that. I got off the phone to him not long ago. He did say to pass on his best. So
thank you, headers.
Yeah. So he's they've been incredible and a huge support. And I guess the best part about those guys for us is they've taken the time to come up to site to meet the team, to see the projects, and certainly come along for the ride with us. And I think it shows the level of support when each race they've in fact up their stake. So they now sit as a 10% holder, and we can't thank them enough, and been absolute a great ride. So hopefully long may it continue. And I think they they had a handy little top up. We bottomed out at about 0.5, 0.6 of a cent. I think we did a raise, and they took a nice little top up there. And so yeah, he probably owes me a beer and a bit of a counter lunch, or maybe I owe him a beer and a counter lunch next time we catch up. So good guys.
Yeah, no, very good, mate. What's the plan? Give me a 3-year outlook. Do you want to be?
Well, I guess
you got enough organic runway yourself, or who do you think might be interested in Sunshine if you're not going to do it all yourself?
Oh, well, hopefully, bloody everyone we start popping up on the radar. But look, I guess the piece of the puzzle that we haven't touched on yet, Matty, is Sybil. So the green and red lease that adjoins Mount Moss on the map. So it was a project we picked up mid last year. It's a low sulfidation epithermal system. They're the sexy sort, the type that get me really interested anyway. This thing looks a ton like Pajingo. We got in there, basically inherited 40 years worth of paper data, annual reports. The team pulled it together pretty quickly, and we drilled 14 diamond holes straight away into Francis Creek, and we had a best number of 4.4 at 57.5. So a huge start for us. In fact, down at Sydney RIU, and I think it was like Miner Hub or one of those guys had a poster of the top sort of 50 gold hits by project in Australia, and Sunshine. We managed to snag 2 spots. We had Sybil, obviously the 4.5 at 57.5, and I think 10 at 32 out of Liontown in the open pit area. So huge testament to the prospectivity and the endowment of the ground that we've got, but also the team doing the fantastic work. So we love this. It looks a ton like Pajingo, and in fact, the first group to explore up at Sybil was Battle Mountain. So it was explored under JV in the in the 80s, early 90s. Battle Mountain. They were doing the work on Pajingo, and I've seen in the travels a nice graph of resource versus expenditure at Pajingo, and they built their mill. The resource started running down. All of a sudden, the expenditure pinged through the roof, and they discovered Viranancy, and all the loads, and the rest is history. It's now produced 4 to 4.5 million ounces of gold. At the same time, they sunk that huge investment into Pajingo. They actually pulled out of the JVs, and I guess Sybil was a project that suffered because of it, and never really got the same systematic approach to the exploration. This came across our desk, so sitting here in Townsville, and we get a lot of local guys and groups come through. We'd had a chat to these guys, so we managed to pick the project up mid last year, get out there and get those first drill holes to really validate. And we're seeing those beautiful boiling zone textures, coliform, crustiform veins. And I know you're not a geo necessarily, but if some of those rocks don't get you excited, Matty, then you're kidding yourself.
Mate, all I see, I'm not a geo, but all I see is a big bloody pit and shallow underground. Looking at that, if you can copy and paste those coloured gold deposits from Pajingo up to Sybil, you're laughing.
Oh, it'd be sensational. So look, Francis Creek is that little tiny red blob in the top left of that picture. That's the whole. This whole Sybil project's had about 105 drill holes up there across, and most of those were air track drilling, so just a tiny little shallow thing. We've found 70 something of the collars, so we've managed to de-GPS it, get all our maps beautifully registered and really target effectively. And so Francis Creek, you look at the bottom there, Pajingo's 7 k's long now. It's a beast, and it's still going. And then you look at Francis Creek, and they've basically barely scratched the surface under the not drill tested arrow there is Francis Creek East. We've got about a 400 metre long outcropping epithermal vein there. Never had a drill hole in it. max rock chips at 28 grams a tonne.
Yeah.
The opportunity up here, it's very early stage, so we acknowledge that first and foremost. It's still going to be a mix of good science and good luck, but we think the sky's the limit up here. And importantly, it's 25k across country, and we're dropped into Mount Moss.
Yeah.
So where does the growth come from? Well, it can come from a bit of an extension to the mining study from the inferred areas that we might be able to incorporate. We've got that gap zone material as we step further down the hill to the east at Liontown, and then we've got Sybil sitting 25 k's away, and we'll start to put some shapes around what we've already got at Francis Creek this year, and hopefully we're talking about discoveries at Francis Creek East, Blue Range, Burdekin veins. There's an 8 by 8 square kilometre area of outcropping epithermal veins that most of them haven't seen a drill hole yet. And we know the system's endowed. So it's one thing finding an epithermal system. It's another thing having some cracking gold intercepts behind it.
Yeah, right, mate. You'd have to get a bloody prescription for Zopiclone to sleep at night. There's too many little different aspects that'd keep you awake and excited. And I assume, have fun keeping focused on that bloody Liontown gold only, because there's a bit happening here. I've got a much more of an appreciation of it now.
Yeah, Liontown's definitely in study phase now. So we're back into that resource update. That'll incorporate the gold panel drilling and that shallow drilling. And then we'll update the mining study off the back of that. And then while we're in study mode there, and it's largely in the hands of the resource guys and the engineers, the field geos, they don't rest. So they've just finished a bit of soil sampling elsewhere, but they're reopened the camp this week up at Sybil. So drill pads are imminent. Clearing of those drill pads imminent, and hopefully be drilling in the next week or so up there as well, week and a half. And yeah, look, I can't wait to get stuck in Francis Creek East. It's, that is kid in a candy shop type stuff, and obviously we've got a big period of engineering and design work going on at Mt Moss, and we'll kick off the procurement of those long lead time items, but get the camp up and running. So the exploration guys hopefully don't have to swag it all field season out at Sybil. They might be able to get a hot shower and all that kind of gear as well. So
some of them love
plenty
it,
going on, but yeah, realistically it's Liontown and Sybil are our key focuses.
Yeah, awesome, mate. No, that was a great overview. I've got much more of an appreciation of the business now. So, and I'll tell you what, Headley, if you're listening, if you don't share this on LinkedIn, you're not doing a bloody good job for your 10% holdings, mate. I'll tell you what. Damo, thanks, heap, mate. And hopefully you're miserable on Thursday after New South Wales flog yous.
Well, mate, I'm sitting there with a 4X and maybe wash it down with a couple of Bundies after a Queensland win.
Mate,
So.
tell you what, I don't know if karma's coming my way, but I went into Aldi last night in Perth, which is not rugby league or not Tooheys New at all, and there's 6 packs of Tooheys New on sale in Aldi.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, right, I've converted to Aldi. I got 2 of them straight away. So, mate, good, best of luck up North Queensland, mate, and well done on everything so far, and look forward to following it.
Appreciate it, mate. We'll keep you in the loop as we have a few wins this year.
Chuck us on a mailing list, mate. Why not?
Bingo. Cheers, matey. Thanks, mate.
And as always, punters, thanks to the Dosh sponsor, the Toad, the Cane Toad. Link in the show notes to the 3D drill hole visualising software that will change your life. Thank you very much.